welcome to the Centre for Brexit Studies YouTube channel. Today we're joined by Senior Fellow Dr. Stephen McCabe. So Steve, the number of workers on UK payrolls dived more than 600,000 between March and May. That's the official figures suggest, and the number of people claiming work-related benefits rose to 2.8 million. This is the impact that around 6 weeks of the lockdown had, but of course we're now actually in week 12. So when do you think we'll be able to fully understand the impact that lockdown has had?
Well, I mean, from August, when employers are expected to start sort of contributing to furlough, then we may see sort of those who are currently sort of on that scheme being made redundant. So quite clearly that those people would normally expect to sort of to get whatever redundancy they've got and then get another job, but that's going to be extremely difficult. So we can start to see the sort of number spiking. I mean, the headline rate is still 3.9%, which of course is not insignificant, but the reality is with the sort of the additional numbers, because of course the ONS numbers tend to lag behind, we're looking at sort of a rate that's approaching the best part of 8%. And the sort of it's fairly confidently predicted that we could be looking at sort of 5 million by Christmas, which would represent something like 15% of the sort of the active workforce. Will Hutton, very notably in the Observer of the weekend, he was talking about a figure of 6 million. I mean, it really is, we're into sort of to really difficult times. But to answer the question quite precisely, I think in the next few weeks we're going to see a lot more of the sort of particularly small and medium-sized employers, because what we've had in the last couple of months, certainly since the sort of the coronavirus crisis, is large employers announcing sort of job losses. For instance, when we had Jaguar Land Rover yesterday letting something like 1,100 temporary staff go, and of course they're all tragedies, as well as Travis Perkins, and we've had the Rolls Royces and whoever else. But so as I say, it's when we get the sort of the much more significant impact of the small and medium-sized people who again, and dare I say, every sort of person that loses their job is a sort of, it's a personal tragedy for them and of course their families.
So the ex-Tory leader William Hague said that lockdown is an economic catastrophe and is calling for the 2-metre distance rule to be scrapped. The hospitality industry and some MPs and scientists as well have also called for the 2-metre rule to be relaxed in England. Could we see this happening sooner than July?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to sort of say, I mean, to call it an economic catastrophe is, well, I mean, quite clear that is a fact. How we could have not had the sort of catastrophe, I do not know. You know, I often wonder, are we supposed to let sort of COVID-19 sort of become rampant and sort of kill many more people than has already occurred? But nonetheless, I still think the sort of the difficulty is that it has had a marked effect upon the sort of the hospitality industry. And I would agree, yeah, maybe there is a very good argument, although that the scientific community are a bit silent on this, to go from sort of 2 meters to 1 meters. So we'll have to sort of see how that works. I mean, there's obviously sort of an argument that, of course, anything that sort of makes life easier, particularly for those people who are in those industries, is bound to be good, because as we were just saying a moment ago, if unemployment does start to shoot up. So yeah, I mean, and again, to answer when we might expect to see this, well, probably not within June, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it happen in early July. It very much depends upon the sort of the politics, the economics, and of course, let's not sort of disregard this, the science of this. Although it's very interesting to note that in the sort of the daily press conferences, as well as becoming increasingly tedious, that you know, the scientific community have no active role. So I think that is also significant. So I do wonder if they'll sort of cease. But yeah, I mean, 1 meter, 2 meter. You know, of course, the other thing that William Hague did say, and agreeing with Tony Blair, is that, you know, what we need to do is have a sort of a very good, you know, I'm not going to use the expression world class, track and testing system, which of course has always been the problem. We had plenty of warning on this, and we're still not there, and it seems to be nowhere near it, because of course that's what's happened, particularly in terms of picking up the sort of the issues in the likes of China and, you know, South Korea is a good example, as Germany was.
And tourism and travel leaders have expressed disappointment and frustration after it emerged that the UK will not be taking part in an EU-led data sharing project to reboot tourism as lockdowns lift. What impact could this have on the tourism industry long term?
Well, I mean, there is no doubt that tourism has been badly affected. If you have a pandemic such as this, which requires people to sort of stay in one place, which of course was the sort of the objective, then quite clearly, people flying around and moving around it was always going to be difficult. I mean, we see this. We've talked about sort of job losses. We've seen this, and we'll probably continue to see it in the sort of the airline industry. I mean, we're into sort of the summer period, in effect. I mean, July is only a couple of weeks away. That's traditionally sort of the point at which people sort of go abroad for their annual vacation in July and August. If that's not going to happen this year, that's going to have a sort of really dramatic impact, in this country and beyond. So I can see that that's sort of having, not being good for all concerned. I mean, it's interesting. I was listening to something earlier on talking about the sort of the southwest, and that they're in this kind of quandary that quite clearly they depend upon tourism. So and they normally get a couple of million people each year. But do they want that figure to sort of to double, quadruple, and again maybe more than that? People who don't go abroad all end up going down to sort of to Devon and Cornwall for their holidays, because of course that will bring COVID into the area, and of course it's our rate, as it were, is increasing anyway. So yeah, there are lots of issues mixed up in this, but quite clearly underlying it all is of course the sort of the longer term economic consequences for those people involved in those sectors.
Thanks for joining us, Steve.
You're welcome.